Okay, welcome back to all of you guys. I'm going to share this next topic with you, but I'm going to go through it in a pretty kind of expedited way because just looking at the time, we kind of went over quite a bit in that last talk, but it's okay because people had questions and I was helping them with what they were asking. Normally we finish that up at 10:30, but we didn't finish up until like 11:20. So had quite a bit of extra time there. So I'm just going to kind of go through this in a little bit more expedited fashion. But if there's any part that you would like to ask questions about, you can ask any questions and we can talk about whatever it is that you'd like to talk about. But this way we won't be here too long and you guys can have lunch. So this topic of practicing in a world of the unknowing, relationships with non-practitioners. What I'm describing here is an individual who's not practicing the teachings of the Buddha. I would refer to this person as a non-practitioner. During the lifetime of the Buddha, he referred to these types of individuals as an uninstructed worldling. Right? Because they were uninstructed, they weren't learning, and he called them worldlings because they were holding on to the world, wanting things to be a certain way. But when you start learning these teachings and you start practicing these teachings, you're going to do things very differently. You're going to think about things very differently than someone who's not practicing these teachings at all. So that's why, like, for those of you guys that are just starting to learn with me, your mind thinks very differently than someone who's been learning and practicing these teachings. You just look at the world very differently. And it's not about what's right or wrong. It's just a different way of thinking about things. And as you start to learn and practice these teachings more closely and you're interacting with people who aren't practicing these teachings, it'll be very strange and very odd for you because your mind thinks in one particular way and they think completely differently. So first, let's just talk about this non-practitioner, right? That they're not actively practicing the teachings of the Buddha. And as I shared, the Buddha referred to them as an untrained or uninstructed worldling. And as I talk about this group of individuals, it's important that you not develop the mindset of us versus them, right? That's not what I'm talking about here. But there is a difference between someone who's practicing these teachings and who's not. So once you start learning these teachings, you're going to understand the world and think about the world very differently than someone who's not practicing these teachings. But we should never develop the mindset of us versus them because that is going to erode your ability to just love all beings and be harmonious with all beings. A non-practitioner is going to think about the world differently than you. For example, they're not going to understand the Four Noble Truths. That when they get angry and frustrated, in some cases, they're going to be blaming you. They're going to think that you're the one who's causing them to be angry and frustrated. And by the time you've penetrated into the Four Noble Truths and you've independently verified them for yourself, you're going to know with 100% certainty you're not causing their anger. You're not causing their frustration, but they're going to firmly believe that you are. So you're going to be in conversations with these non-practitioners where they're going to be trying to blame you for the feelings that they're experiencing. And you just need to be able to understand that that's where they're coming from because they haven't learned the Four Noble Truths. Also, they might not know the Eightfold Path. So they're going to be, a constant struggle for them to understand things like craving, desire, attachment. They're going to have certain struggles with their moral conduct because they're not going to have the wisdom around those kinds of things. So they're going to have what the Buddha refers to as wrong view. What wrong view is where you're blaming other people for the feelings that you are experiencing. That would be wrong view because other people aren't causing your feelings. But that's what a non-practitioner is going to have. They're going to have wrong view where they're going to blame you for what they're experiencing. You might even have wrong view at this point where you haven't fully penetrated into the Four Noble Truths to be able to see clearly that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. So a non-practitioner will have wrong view. They also most likely aren't going to understand true love without attachment. They're going to be thinking that their attachment is the love. So for example, if you were dating a non-practitioner, you were in a relationship with a non-practitioner and they went on a business trip and they called you or sent you a text message and they were like, "Hey honey, do you miss me?" And you were like, "No, I don't miss you." They're going to be like, "What? Don't you love me?" Because they're associating that discontent feeling of missing them as your love because they think that's what's causing the missing you is the love, but it's not. It's the craving, desire, attachment. By the time you eliminate your craving, desire, attachment to people, you won't miss them. And it's not because you don't love them. That feeling of I miss you, that means like I'm not content here without you. I'm dissatisfied because I don't have you with me. My mind is craving for you to be permanent in my life. And when you're impermanent and you go on this business trip for 2 weeks, I now miss you, right? That's the craving, desire, attachment, that I can't be content and satisfied unless you're here with me. So that feeling of I miss you, that's not coming from the love. That's coming from the craving, desire, attachment. So if you're with a non-practitioner in a relationship and you say, I don't miss you, they're going to interpret that as you don't love me, because they're thinking that that missing feeling is from the love, when in reality it's coming from craving, desire, attachment. So you need to understand that when you're interacting with non-practitioners, they're going to be thinking about things and looking at the world very differently than you. So you're going to need to understand that as you're interacting with them. So I wouldn't say to someone, no, I don't miss you. I would reply to that situation a little bit differently. So they also may not be actively cultivating wholesome qualities and eliminating unwholesome qualities. If you're in a relationship with a non-practitioner, whether it's a boyfriend, girlfriend, whether it's a co-worker or a friend, you might be working on your moral conduct to eliminate gossip and slander, where you're eliminating profanity and things like this, that you're learning more and more how to have intention, speech, and actions that are wholesome. And maybe they're not doing that. And now you're around this individual who's not choosing to work on their moral conduct, and they're blaming you for things. You're going to have all kinds of challenges like this. So this is what I'm talking about in terms of a non-practitioner. So now I'm going to teach you how to have relationships with individuals who are non-practitioners, because that's part of what you're going to have, right? Not everybody in your life is going to be practicing these teachings. If that was true, that would be permanence, right? So you're going to be around people who aren't practicing these teachings, and that's okay. You can still have a wonderful life around these people. You're just going to need to learn how to relate to these individuals in a loving and caring way, understanding that you guys are essentially playing from two different sheets of music, right? Like you're looking at one sheet of music, they're looking at another sheet of music, and now you guys need to play some music together, right? So you're going to need to understand that they're looking at life completely differently than you. That's a non-practitioner or an untrained worldling, okay? So if, let me see here. What is this? Okay. So if you're knowing the teachings and observing non-practitioners are struggling, but they have no interest in learning and practicing the teachings on the path to enlightenment, you might actually be struggling, right? Because your mind is becoming wiser and wiser. You're understanding that the difficulties and struggles that people experience in life, they're all self-imposed, right? People, when they're struggling and having difficulties, this is coming from their own decisions in their day-to-day life. It's not from the outside world. It's not from other people. So when you're around a non-practitioner and they're complaining about what's going on in their life, they're struggling with certain aspects of their life, you're going to know that their struggles are coming from them. But they don't understand that. And you're starting to understand more and more what these natural laws are that the Buddha taught, and how to solve these things that are very simple for you are very difficult for this person, because they don't have the same wisdom. And as you're experiencing this, you might actually struggle yourself to see them struggle, that you're seeing them struggle. This is because of your attachment to this person and wanting them to be a certain way. So you're going to need to eliminate your craving, desire, attachment to helping people. It doesn't mean that you don't ever help people. That's what people need to understand. This word craving, desire, attachment, it's the longing, the yearning, right? That's what you're working to eliminate. If you are all the way on the other side where you could care less about people and what they're doing, that's indifference. You're not interested in that either. You would like to come to the middle where you have an interest to help people, but you understand that people getting help is their decision. It's not your decision, right? You can choose to try to help someone, but whether somebody receives that help or not, it's a decision for them to make. You can't force someone to take your help. It's just not possible, right? So what you need to eliminate is the craving, desire, attachment, the longing, the yearning to help people. That's what's going to help protect your mind so that you're not experiencing discontentedness in these situations where people are struggling in life and they have no interest to learn these teachings whatsoever, right? So I'll give you an example from my life. My sister doesn't practice these teachings, right? She knows that I've been sharing these teachings for a long time. And there are certain times where we used to talk and she would have certain struggles. And I could see like, wow, if she only knew this one little teaching from the Buddha, it would be so great for her, right? But she wasn't interested. right? So I needed to make sure that I didn't have an attachment to her learning and practicing these teachings, longing, yearning, and wanting her to learn and practice these teachings, because while she was struggling, I would be struggling if that was the case, right? So I needed to let go and not have any attachment. So I would do things like I'd see her struggling with something and I'd say, the Buddha has a really great teaching that would help you in this situation. That's it. She wouldn't say anything. She wouldn't say, oh yeah, what's that teaching? Or really, can you share it with me? She didn't say any of that. She just almost like she didn't hear it, right? And I just needed to be comfortable with that. Whereas if I had a craving to help her, I would be trying to force this teaching into her life, and now she's going to resist it, right? Because what's the first thing you do when someone's trying to force you and control you? You're going to resist it, right? So I could offer help, but then I'm not attached to whether she receives that help or not. So I could say, hey, there's a teaching that could really help you in this situation. And if she said, oh yeah, what is that? Then I could help her with it. Right, her asking for help. Whereas if she just doesn't say anything at all, or she says, oh, I'm not interested, I need to just be like, okay, that's fine. She's going to struggle. And just know that that's what she's choosing to do. That's her choice to struggle. But if I'm attached to her and I'm craving to help her, when she's not interested in help, I'd be upset. I'd be frustrated. So you're eliminating your craving, desire, attachment, your longing to help people while still being interested to help people and willing to help people. That's the middle way. Because over here on the other side, you'd be indifferent and you could care less about people. And neither one of these two sides are going to be peaceful and joyful, where you're indifferent or you're craving and longing, yearning. So you need to come to the middle. Okay? When you're observing non-practitioners' unwholesome moral conduct, such as wrong speech or wrong action, you need to be sure that you don't have a craving, desire, attachment for them to function in a certain way, because you're going to be in situations where people are making unwise choices about their moral conduct. I have a student right now that just recently started dating someone, and she contacted me the other day and she said, this person is using a lot of profanity, and she asked me what she should do and how she should handle it. Right? So you're going to be in situations where people are doing unwise things, and you need to decide in any given situation what would be wise or unwise. And there's not just one template of a decision that you need to make. There's different variables in each one of these situations. You need to figure out how to handle this. But you're not going to solve your difficulties and struggles by changing other people. The solution here isn't to change somebody else. The first thing you need to do is eliminate your own craving, desire, attachment for this person to be a certain way. And then if you try to help this person, then you can try to do those kinds of things, but you need to do it without craving, desire, attachment. Because if you do it with craving, desire, attachment, you're going to be trying to force and control and put your expectations on the person. So you need to learn how to do that. Understand that you can move away from relationships while maintaining your love. When I talk about aversion, what aversion is where you're experiencing painful feelings and you think the way to solve this is to push a person away, and now that's going to solve your painful feelings. That's aversion. That's not going to solve your painful feelings, because pushing this person away doesn't change anything about what's going on in your mind. It's your mind, your own craving, desire, attachment that's causing these painful feelings. So pushing someone away and thinking that that's solved your problem isn't going to actually solve your problem. But you might choose to leave out of a relationship and move on in the relationship. From the outside looking in, it looks exactly the same. Two people are leaving a relationship. There's a person who's leaving a relationship. From the outside looking in, it looks exactly the same. The difference is with aversion, your mind thinks that your painful feelings are being caused by this other person, and by leaving that relationship, you're going to fix it. That's aversion. But you can still choose to leave a relationship even if you have painful feelings, but you maintain right view where you understand those painful feelings are coming from your own mind. And leaving out of the relationship doesn't solve your painful feelings. You still need to eliminate your craving, desire, attachment. So let me give you an example. Let's just say a person was in a relationship and their partner was physically hitting them, right? Physically assaulting them. Well, any kind of discontent feelings that you're experiencing, is being caused by your own mind. Your mind is having certain cravings, desires, attachment, longing, yearning, wanting this person to be a certain way. And just choosing to push that person away and leave isn't going to solve that, right? But it still doesn't necessarily make sense to stay in the relationship. You might still choose to leave out of the relationship, but those cravings, desires, attachments you have for this person to be a certain way, you understand with right view that you need to eliminate those cravings, that this person isn't going to function the way you want them to function, but it could still be wise for you to move on out of the relationship. So you can actually love someone while not being in a relationship with them. It's still possible, right? Because love is a genuine interest in seeing them be well. So at one time, me and my sister, of course, we grew up together. We had a relationship together. But there was a certain point in time in around 2007, I think it was, 2008, that I decided I wasn't going to continue in a relationship with her any longer, that I needed to just kind of move on, right? So I kind of stepped away from that relationship for a good 10 years that I was away. I didn't know it was going to be that long. I didn't know if I'd ever be friends with, friendly with her again or in a relationship with her again. But anyway, I stepped away from the relationship for a period of time. All that time, during the time I was away from my sister, I still loved her. I had a genuine interest in seeing her be well, but I just knew that us being together in a relationship wasn't working out. There was too much judgment and hostility on her side, and perhaps on my side too. I had the same thing, and it was causing our relationship to have difficulties. So I decided to step away from the relationship. I didn't tell her that's what I was doing. I didn't go to her and download all the reasons why I was choosing to step away. I just chose to kind of gradually step away from the relationship. Right. And now during that period of time, my mind was able to let go and let go and let go. And her mind was able to let go and let go and let go. So ultimately, when we decided to start spending time together again, we function differently. We function better, right? Now we don't put expectations on each other. We don't judge each other. But that whole 10 years that we were away, I still loved her, meaning I had a genuine interest in seeing her be well. Sometimes we think that being in a relationship and seeing each other regularly, that's our love. But that's not necessarily the love. So you could actually love someone while still not being in a relationship with them. So every ex-girlfriend that I've ever had, and I had one ex-wife, I still love them. Meaning I have a genuine interest in seeing them be well, right? But I know that we don't need to be in a relationship together anymore based on what we experienced in our relationship. It was best for us to split up. But I still love them, meaning I have a genuine interest in seeing them be well. So, and I can do that while still maintaining right view, where I didn't push them away thinking that that's going to solve my painful feelings. Right? Instead, I just chose to move on from the relationship and then worked on eliminating my crave and desire attachment to establish and maintain right view. Okay, so you can choose to move on from relationships and just work on eliminating your craving, desire, attachment. So you're going to need to eliminate cravings and expectations, the wanting and longing for other people to practice the teachings and attempting to force them to practice the teaching. So I gave you an example with my sister, how I just kind of mentioned to her occasionally when I see her struggling with something that, hey, there's a really great teaching that would help you here. And I've done that maybe 2 or 3 times and she never takes me up on the offer. So I just stopped offering, right? And I did that over maybe a course of a year or 2, maybe like 2 or 3 different times. And she's never taken me up on it, so I just stop offering. And then when she has struggles, right? And that's her choice. That's her choice to do that. And because I'm not attached to her, I can maintain my peacefulness and just realize that that's her choice to struggle, where there's actually teachings that would help her to not struggle. But that's her choice to not learn them and practice them. So when you're around non-practitioners, you're going to need to not have this craving or attempting to force them to learn and understand the same things that you have understood. Okay? You're going to need to train your mind to be comfortable with accepting other people's choices and decisions. Because as we were talking earlier, no one's choices and decisions are going to be the same as yours. Everybody's going to have different choices and decisions, so they're not going to match to yours. So whatever you decide in life is going to be different than what other people choose. So as long as you're not craving permanence for everyone to make decisions your way, you can actually be quite peaceful in these relationships with non-practitioners. The problem isn't that other people aren't practicing the teachings, but instead your mind might want or expect other people to practice the teachings. That's what's causing your painful feelings. Understand that you can disagree with other people's intentions, speech, and actions while choosing to remain peaceful and calm, serene, and content with joy. Right? You can disagree with other people's choices and decisions, but maintain your peace and your joy. Right? I don't agree with everything my sister's done. I don't agree with everything my mom does, or my wife, or my son, or any of these other people that have been in my life. I don't agree with all their decisions, but I don't have to, because it's their decision. It's their life. It's not my life. Right? They get to make their own decisions, and their decisions affect them. It doesn't affect me. Right? So understand that you can also disagree with others' intentions, speech, and actions while still maintaining love and kindness and compassion, not wanting them to do or say the same things as you. Right? Sometimes we think that disagreement is disrespectful, but that's not true. Of course we have disagreements because we've all had different experiences in life. We're going to disagree with people sometimes, and that's normal. Disagreement doesn't mean disrespect. It just means we have two different opinions. We've had different experiences. That's impermanence. So if you can only spend time with people who agree with you, well, it's only a matter of time before one of your friends or family members disagree with you, because of impermanence, right? So if you go around looking for agreement, and agreement means you can spend time with people, and disagreement means you can't, and if you think disagreement means disrespect, this isn't true. So students oftentimes disagree with me, right? When I'm teaching like this, or I'm teaching online, students will say, David, I disagree with that. And then they'll share their thoughts and ideas, and they'll ask me questions to be able to understand. And of course they disagree, because they don't understand the teachings of the Buddha in the same way that I do, right? So they're going to have disagreements and understanding, but disagreement doesn't mean disrespect. It just means that your mind's thinking one way, my mind's thinking a different way. And now if you're interested in understanding what I'm thinking, I will share that with you and help you to understand these teachings and how an individual thinks that practices these teachings. But that's up to each individual to decide. I'm not going to force it or try to control someone to understand that. So you're going to be around people who disagree with you. That's normal. Right? In fact, sometimes when I'm first having relationships with people, I will intentionally disagree with them just for the sake of it, just to see how their mind functions. Not in a hostile or bitter or harsh way, but they might say something and I hear it and I'm like, oh, I disagree with that. And I just wait to see how they respond. Because if somebody has craving for you to agree with them, they're going to start fighting and advocating and trying to debate with you and trying to convince you to agree with them. And that's their craving, their desire, and they're trying to force and control you to agree with them. And this is not going to promote harmonious relationships. So where people disagree with you, it's okay. You don't have to try to get them to agree with you. Them disagreeing with you doesn't mean anything other than that they've had different experiences than you. That's it. But if you crave permanent agreement that everybody has to agree with you, when they disagree with you, you will fight and you will argue and try to convince them to agree with you. Instead, just let go and understand it's okay for people to disagree with you. It's okay, right? Okay. So now what I usually do here at this point is just see what challenges that you guys might be having with certain people in your life, so that then I can help you with those. So if you guys have any of these, I will help you. Do you guys have any questions about people that are currently in your life, or maybe recent relationships that you need help with? If not, it's okay. Yeah? Galo usually has questions. Yeah, it's just a matter if you're interested to talk about it. You all guys all have challenges, but would you like to share it publicly? I've been to places in Thailand where, someone will stand up and talk to the teacher. There'll be 1,000 people there. And the woman's like, my husband's cheating on me. My kids won't listen to me. They don't do their homework. I just lost my job. What can I do? Right? They're completely comfortable talking about these things. Where us, we tend to be more reserved. But go ahead.
So in the case that somebody's explaining you their problem, mm-hmm. and you would share the teachings of the Buddha, mm-hmm. but they're not really interested in finding a solution to that problem. They just want to share the problem. What should we I maybe don't want to listen to them explaining it if they don't want to find a solution.
Yeah, you can just ask people outright. Like sometimes I do that. I say, are you looking for my suggestions on this? And most of the time, because of me and I'm a teacher, they say yes. That's 99.999% of the time they'll say yes. But if someone said no, I'm like, okay. I just move on to the next topic. Yeah. My mom would come to me sometimes. She would come to me and ask advice. She's dead now. She died in 2017. But she would come to me sometimes and ask for advice. She's like, David, I have this problem. I have this issue. Here's all the things that are going on. What do you suggest? And I'd sit there and talk to her for 45 minutes or an hour and explain to her everything that I think she should do. And she's like, David, I think your advice is exactly right, what I need to do, but I'm not going to do it that way. And I'd say, okay, that's up to you. It's your life. And then she would go off and she would go do whatever she's doing. She would come back 6 months later and she's like, David, it happened again. And I'm like, what? What happened? She was like, I didn't listen to you and it turned out exactly the way you said. I was like, I should have just listened to you. I should know better by now. And I was like, no worries, Mom. I still love you. Right? That's unconditional love. That you're willing to share with people and help people. That's your generosity without any expectation of anything in return. Right? Even that they will follow what it is that you share. So you need to get comfortable with people perhaps saying things to you or they're downloading all their problems and they're not even interested in any help from you. That's unconditional love. Okay, that's what that person would like to do. Or even you help them and you share advice with them for an entire hour and then they do it completely opposite of the way that you suggested. You're going to need to be comfortable with that. Because that's your generosity, where you don't have any expectation of anything, that they will follow what it is that you suggest. And that's true love, that you don't have any expectation of them. You're just sharing out of the kindness of your heart.
Do you think that it helps to be passive in some ways? Like, for example, you are with your mom and tell you, oh, you are always eating very fast, and every time that you are eating, is telling you, you eat so fast, you eat so fast. But I don't pay attention. But
I don't think these batteries have been changed for a long time. Usually the students change them. They're right here in the box, but you can just set that one to the side and you guys can change it later. Just get them another mic.
Or, for example, when you are with a friend and he doesn't treat you well, or you have a trip, for example, with your brother and he's always asking you telling you bad words. And you decide to be more passive, like, oh, I'm not going to pay attention because he's having their own things and their cravings are projecting to me in some way, like, and I don't take it personally. But I don't know if it helps to be very passive because at some moment you will get tired. I mean, like, okay, 1 day is enough, 2 days, 3, 4, 5. When you are for like 2 weeks receiving this kind of treatment, I don't know if it's good to be passive or not, because it doesn't show you like real self-love, maybe. So I don't know what you will do in these situations. Yeah.
The first example, were you saying your mom tells you that you eat too fast?
Yeah.
Okay. So each one of these situations, you're going to handle it differently each time.
Okay.
There's not just one way to do it. Right? This is what the unenlightened mind wants, is it wants just one way to do things because it craves the permanence. It's almost like plug and play. If this happens, do this. If this happens, do that. That would be a permanent answer for every single situation, where every single situation is different. There's unique variables involved, right? So if you sit down with your mom and she's like, hey, you eat too fast, you could just stay quiet, ignore her, and just keep eating because you know that that's her expectation. That's one option you could do. And you might do that multiple times and just see if eventually she stops saying it. But it sounds like it's been going on for a long time. So, so she hasn't stopped yet, right? So now if you've been ignoring it and she just keeps saying it, now you might decide to say something, but you're not doing it in a way that controls her or tries to put expectations on her, because she's putting her expectations on you. If you put your expectations on her, it's just continuing to this whole thing. So if you were to say, Mom, stop putting your expectations on me, I don't like it when you do that, you've now just put an expectation on her. And now, since you're putting out expectations, she's going to keep putting expectations on you. So instead, you might just say, Mom, my goal in life is not to meet your expectations. You haven't put any expectation on her. You've just told her something about you and how you make decisions. And she'll be like, what are you talking about? Yeah, I just eat the way that I eat, and I just know that I'm never going to meet your expectations, Mom, and that's not even my goal. She's going to be like, huh? What are you talking about, right? Like, I'm your mother. You got to listen to me. I do listen to you, Mom, and I really appreciate all the advice you've ever given me in my life, but I'm just never going to do things the way you want me to do it. So you can have these kind of conversations. Being Buddhist and practicing these teachings doesn't mean you're passive. That's one of the biggest misperceptions that people have about the teachings of the Buddha. They think that you're passive. You can actively talk with people and help people to understand your thought process, but you need to be skillful in doing it in a way that doesn't put expectations on them and try to control them. Because if they're trying to control you and then you try to control them back, then your gamma is that they're going to just keep trying to control you because you're trying to control other people. So you need to learn how to be skillful and do things in a way that doesn't allow your mind to put expectations on other people. So each one of these situations are going to be different and unique. And oftentimes what students do is, as they're having these situations, they will come seek advice from me, and then I will share with them a couple of different options, and then they'll try those different options. And then if they need more options, they'll come back and ask me for some more, and then I'll share some more things with them. And then eventually you'll be able to see how these things can improve. But in this situation, getting your mom to stop trying to tell you to eat too fast isn't going to solve your problem, right? Like if she's been telling you 2, 3, 4, 5 days, you said that you get tired of it. That's because you have a craving for her to be a certain way. So getting mom to stop telling you that you're eating too fast doesn't solve your craving, desire, attachment. So you need to eliminate your craving, desire, attachment, but at the same time, you could help mom see that she's having an expectation, because that's what the Buddha was teaching you in that other talk that I did this morning, where you establish your parents in wisdom when you see that they're unwise. She just doesn't understand. Everybody eats at a different pace. That might be something that you say to her. You might say, Mom, everybody eats at a different pace. Not everybody eats the same pace. I'm eating the way that I think is best, but I understand that you would prefer me to eat slower, but that's your choice, and I'm making choices for me. Right? So never did I tell her, stop doing this, don't do that. I expect you to stop talking to me this way. You're just sharing thoughts and ideas with her.
But at some moment, they take that as a self-defense. And they start arguing, yeah, but this is not good for your health, and maybe you eat too fast, and she's self-defensing. Even you say that maybe I'm not here to meet your expectations, but
yeah. So what I hear there is mom's attached, right? Because she's trying to control you about your health. She's trying to control you about this and that and other thing. That's why oftentimes it's better to just ignore these things when people are trying to put their expectations on you, depending on who it is. A parent is a little bit different because you can sometimes help them to cultivate some wisdom and see. But if it's like a friend or an acquaintance or something like this, oftentimes it's best to just ignore it. And then it'll kind of fade away. They'll stop doing those kinds of things. But it still doesn't solve your problem. If you have a craving for nobody to tell you what you should or shouldn't be doing, then you're going to need to let go of that. And oftentimes it's best to just ignore people's putting their expectations on you. But in some situations, brothers, sisters, parents, the Buddha shares that if there's someone in your life that you think will heed your advice, in other words, be influenced by what it is that you have to share, he says that it would be wise to try to help this person, but you still need to do it skillfully, where you're not giving them unsolicited guidance. If you give them unsolicited guidance, it's not wise, because this is your own conceit, trying to tell them what they should or shouldn't be doing. So you would like to learn how to be skillful in these situations. And if you'd like to talk privately, I can help you with each one of these kinds of situations. But my goal isn't going to be to change mom and convince mom to do things a certain way. It's going to be to help you first eliminate your craving, desire, attachment. And then ultimately, if we like to help mom cultivate some wisdom, we can, but that's not going to solve your problem of your discontentedness. Mm-hmm.
I was thinking that it helps let it go each time, but even it seems that let it go at some moment, I don't know, it's not really, it's like it comes at some moment. I don't know to say patient. It's like, I'm getting tired of this situation. Even and maybe I don't feel completely attached to that.
Yeah. One of the things you can do with mom is you can kind of preempt her commentary, right? Like, say you guys are getting ready to sit down for a meal together. You can say, Mom, I'm sure when we sit down and get ready to have this meal, at some point you might have the urge to tell me I'm eating so fast. I would like to just let you know that I'm still going to eat the same pace that I'm eating, and I love you regardless. Right? So you're going to need to potentially do these kinds of things multiple times before mom understands. But in the meantime, you can do it joyfully and cheerfully and with gladness in your mind, where you're not trying to control mom. So you might need to kind of preempt it and almost laugh about it sometimes. That's how I've helped my wife a lot. I tend to laugh and make jokes out of the things, when she has done certain things in the past. And I'm not trying to change her, but I'm helping her to be able to see this better way of life and cultivate more wisdom. And that's what you can do with mom, is you can kind of get ahead of the curve as you guys are sitting down for a meal. Or say she says, "Hey son, would you like to come over to eat?" I was like, "Mom, that sounds really great, but let me ask you, are you going to tell me that I eat too fast if I come eat with you?" And she's like, "No, I'm not going to do that." "Okay, great. I'll come eat with you. Because if you're going to just tell me how I eat so fast, I probably am not going to come eat with you." So this is like a good way to kind of like just help her understand. And you're still not putting your expectations on her. You're not trying to control her and tell her what she should or shouldn't be doing. You're just making decisions about your own life and helping her to be able to see something about her practice that she's not seeing herself. Mm-hmm.
I have another question. That, for example, many times with friends that they have like a social circle, they like to eat certain kind of food or go specific places or restaurants, and sometimes I feel that so I can fit with them, I do it, but later I feel guilty because it's like I betrayed to me, like, I don't want to eat really this food because I know that it's not a wise decision, because later I get fat and later I don't like. I like to cultivate my body and but I keep doing these bad decisions because I want to share time with these people, and sometimes I don't know how to say no. So I don't know if you can help me some advice.
This is your craving to spend time with your friends, right? So if I were you, what I would do is I would intentionally not go out with your friends sometimes. Because understand, if you're going to have friends, that if they're true friends, it's going to be a lifelong friendship, right? So whether you go out to dinner or lunch with them today or not, doesn't really matter. Because over the course of your entire life, you're going to have plenty of opportunities to spend time with them. So if I was you, occasionally, I would choose not to go out, even if you're able to go out, even if it's a restaurant that's healthy and you would like to go to this restaurant. Occasionally choose not to go out with your friends so that your mind can get comfortable with your friends are going out to eat without you, and that's okay. Because you need to be able to train your mind to be comfortable with them, which you're obviously comfortable and enjoy with them, but you need to be comfortable without them as well and train your mind to let go. So you're going to need to insert this impermanence where you're comfortable to not go out to eat with them sometimes.
Yeah, this happened also when, I don't know, for example, recently I went to Taiwan and I spent time with a friend and we were like 2 weeks, or with my brother the same. So the kind of things that they want to experiment, like this food, something like that. I don't like to do it, but I do it in some way. And I think that it's more not a craving for friend. I think that it's craving for food. That I like how it tastes, something like that, but I don't want to be attached to the food because I cannot control sometimes how much I eat. So, and I don't know. It's probably a mix of both, but it's mixing two things together.
Yeah, there's that too. So if you're getting the Eightfold Path underway, that breathing mindfulness meditation, generosity, and all the other teachings is going to knock down all your cravings generally. But then there's certain things you can do with foods too. So if they're going out to your favorite restaurant and you really enjoy eating at that restaurant, choosing not to go will help you learn how to restrain your mind in that situation from that particular craving. And you're going to need to do that multiple times before your mind lets go, and you can be just as content whether you go or not. So you're going to need to do that multiple times where you train your mind to not go out for that particular food. And then when you see that your mind is just as joyful and cheerful when you go as when you don't go, then at some point you'll just go because you know you really like this restaurant. But you need to go through a period of time where you're not choosing not to go and you're able to restrain your mind. Mm-hmm. There's people online that'll appreciate you using the microphone.
You mentioned if they're friends.
Mm-hmm.
What if they're not, or what if you're trying to cultivate a new relationship with them?
If people aren't true friends, it's better not to have relationships with them because this individual isn't loving you as you are. That they're only going to spend time with you if you do things their way. That's not true love. So it's actually better to not have that relationship than to have it. So you would like to have wise decision making about who you include in your life. And if somebody is putting expectations on you, trying to control you, trying to force you to do things their way, they'll only spend time with you if you do things their way. It's better to not have these individuals in your life because you're not going to ever get to a peaceful and joyful relationship with this type of individual.
And what if you're trying to cultivate a new one?
Same thing. Like if at the very beginning of the relationship, they're showing you that they will only spend time with you if you do things their way, they're showing you how their mind functions. And that's the way they have relationships, that it has to be their way or no way at all. And it's better to not have that relationship from the very beginning because you're just wasting your time because you're not going to change this person's mind and the way they think and the way they have relationships. That's the way that they function. And if you try to force this relationship, it's like forcing a round peg in a square hole. It's better to see up front that this person isn't interested in spending time with you unless you do things their way. And it's like that every single time. And now it's just better not to have a relationship. It's kind of like if you had a friend that every time you went to the movies, you had to see the movie that they wanted to see. They're never interested in seeing the movies you want to see. It's always got to be their movie. And they get angry if it's any other way. It's better just not to spend time with this person because they're trying to control what happens and they're not comfortable with it any other way. And you're never going to have a healthy relationship with this person because they're going to be constantly trying to control you. And it's better to just see that up front and know that that's what that is and just have a relationship with someone different. But if you're clinging to this person, maybe you like the way they look, maybe they're successful in their job, maybe there's a potential business contact, you might be clinging and holding on and wanting those benefits, and you're unwilling to walk away from the relationship. But you need to be willing to not cling to those things and just realize like, hey, this relationship's never going to be harmonious as long as their mind is functioning this way, where it's always got to be their way. And you got to be comfortable to walk away from that relationship and realize there's 8 billion people in the world. There's plenty of friends, plenty of people for you to be able to make relationships with. Because if you surround yourself with a bunch of people who are only interested in their own self-interest, then that means you're never going to be able to have a real harmonious relationship with any of these people because they're always going to be doing things their way, never interested in any other way. And now you're going to be locked in with all these people who just wanted their way. And now you're not really enjoying the relationships that you're in. So it's better to see it up front and just walk away and cultivate relationships with people who are open-minded and willing to sometimes do things their way, but sometimes do things your way. And now you guys can kick it. Now you guys can have a good life.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Okay. Gala.
Thank you.
Yes, I was thinking of my mom. When she talks down or criticizes certain collectives or girls who post certain pictures online. Oh, thank you. And I don't know how to reply to these comments.
Okay, say it again. I was watching him walk.
Yeah, when my mom, but honestly also my friends, when tip or talk down on certain for doing certain things, I don't know how to reply.
Oh, I see. So if someone's gossiping or slandering, that's harming them because their mind is producing unwholesome results for themselves because they're functioning through their craving, their desire, their attachment. They're functioning through their conceit. Because when you're gossiping and slandering someone, the mind's trying to push this person down. It's functioning through its own craving and conceit. And it's going to cause harm for them because they're putting out harm, and that harm's going to come back to them. When someone's gossiping or slandering around you, it's important that your mind's not influenced by that. If it's just any average person, you might just change the subject or get up and walk away or something like that. But if it's someone like your mom, as you saw with the Buddha's teachings, it's wise to try to help them if you can. And you can say things like this, because you're not interested in giving unsolicited guidance. So you can say things like this: Mom, have you ever thought about talking in wholesome ways about people rather than gossip or slander? And she's like, what are you talking about? It's like, well, I just noticed that sometimes when you talk, you kind of talk down about people. And I was just wondering if you've ever thought about talking in a different way where you don't speak this way about people. So you can say things like that. You know your mom's personality much better than me because I don't even know her, but you can kind of say these kinds of things where you're not putting your expectations on her. You're just getting her to think about these things. Or you can even say, Mom, do you like it when people gossip and slander about you? And she's going to say, no, I don't. And say, why is it that you do that about other people if you don't like it for yourself? Because in that situation, I haven't told her anything. I'm just asking her questions. And now it kind of brings up to her mind like, oh yeah, you're right. Like that's true. I do that, don't I? Right? So you're not forcing anything into her life. You're just asking her questions and she's having to respond to it. And it's almost like she's teaching herself. And this is a skillful way to teach someone. The Buddha used to do this all the time. You can see it in his teachings. He would just ask questions to get people to understand something.
So kind of on the same topic, so my partner, my husband, can be very critical, at least I think so. And he's Vietnamese. So there's also like that cultural difference of, you know, you'll walk in and people will be like, oh, you're fat. Or like, oh, you're skinny. And, you know, he'll say that about people. Like I own a yoga studio and it's in our house coming in time. And he'll have comments to say about people, whether fat or sometimes it's, oh, they're really kind, or, oh, they seem like this, or, oh, they seem like that. And I'll be like, hey, like you're being really critical. I don't appreciate it. And I don't want to hear it. And he's like, what? I'm just speaking the truth. And I'm like, and that irritates me. Right. And has caused, you know, larger arguments. So yeah, how to respond. And maybe it's just asking questions like.
Yeah, that's what I would suggest. So if it was like just an average everyday person, you don't necessarily have to do the things that we're talking about here. But when it's someone like a life partner or a parent, these are people that the Buddha talks about like this person will heed your advice and someone you have compassion for. He talks about that too, that if you have compassion for this person, that it would be wise to kind of establish them in wisdom. So a life partner is that kind of person. But first, it's important to understand, and I think you know by now, after being here for like a day and a half, that irritation you have, yeah, it's coming from your own mind, wanting him to be a certain way. So you're going to need to eliminate that. That's going to help you get to peace and joy. But then, obviously, it would be wonderful to help this person to be able to see this better way of life. And that's where you can ask them questions and be like, have you ever had anybody respond negatively when you talk that way? And he's like, yeah, occasionally, sometimes. It's like, wouldn't it be great if when you talked, you were always positive and friendly and respectful? Wouldn't that be wonderful to be able to do that and have better relationships? So you can kind of like ask him questions like this and kind of leading him to teach himself and think about these things. And like I said, you know his personality better than I do, so you would know the questions to ask and how to do that. And you need to spread this out over multiple situations. It's not going to be just you do it one time and then he's going to completely change everything that he's doing. So you're going to need to do it over multiple situations. Even like my son last night, we were watching a YouTube video or something online, and it was about the storm, and it was blowing around all this different stuff, and there was a porta potty that was being blown through the parking lot, and it was very turbulent because it was a hurricane, a typhoon. And he started laughing. He's like, wouldn't that be funny if there was somebody in that porta potty? And I just looked at him and I said, I don't find that funny. I don't think that's funny. He's like, oh, it's funny because if someone was in the porta potty, it would be really funny. It's being blown all over the parking lot. And I was like, yeah, but somebody would get hurt if that was the case. I was like, I don't see that as funny. And then he's like, okay. And then he just like went off to his room and he went somewhere else, right? And maybe he thought about it for a little bit. So I didn't tell him what he should or shouldn't do. I wasn't trying to force him or control him or change him in any way. I was just saying my thoughts. Like, yeah, I don't find that funny. I don't find that kind of thing funny. And I asked him, and I think I said, why do you see that as funny? Right? And I asked him, and he was like, I don't know. I just think it's funny. And he just like walked away. So you can do these kind of things, but you need to do it over multiple situations. And you understanding the teachings first is going to be most helpful. Mm-hmm.
I was just going to say, like, when I've asked him before, like, do other people respond negatively when you say these things? Because my Vietnamese is not great. He's like, no one's ever told me I'm critical. It's just you, like, or like tone of voice. Like sometimes he can just say things. He's like, no, it's just you and my brother. You're the only ones that get irritated or frustrated by these things. And I'm like, but.
So what I would say to that is I say maybe we are the only ones that have enough care and concern about your future that we're willing to share it with you, where maybe other people have those same concerns, but they just weren't willing to share it with you. So this is something I'm sharing with you out of love and kindness that you might consider looking at how you speak with people, because you'll have much better relationships and it would be really lovely for you to be able to have that experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think especially Vietnamese culture, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you can try these different things. And if you need help, you can contact me even when you're back in Vietnam, and you can let me know what you're experiencing and I can give you more ideas. And because it's going to be multiple things that happen. Because I've been helping my son for 6 years, and you see that he still, had this particular challenge. So you're not trying to change other people, but in this situation, yeah, it makes sense to help your husband or boyfriend, to be able to see that, yeah, going around calling people fat and overweight and stuff like that, it's not wise. And if he's open to the teachings of the Buddha, because Vietnamese people sometimes are into Buddhist teachings, you could show him what I taught on Monday. It's in the book. It's on the poster. It's called The 5 Factors of Well-Spoken Speech. It's speaking at the proper time. What you say is true, gentle, beneficial, and with a mind of loving kindness. And that's where you can show it to him. And you can ask him, is it very loving and kind to tell people that they're fat and overweight? So you can help him see a better way. But it's up to him to decide whether he'd like to change what he's doing on a day-to-day basis. And you're going to need to be content and peaceful regardless. because you just have a craving for him to be a certain way, and you're going to need to let that go. Okay. So now it's almost 1 o'clock. It's 10 minutes to 1. This next topic that I have to share with you, it's the topic of practicing non-attachment, how to eliminate attachment to those who are close to you. We could take a lunch and then come back because it's 1 o'clock, because this one's going to take me, probably 30 minutes, 45 minutes to teach you. So if you guys come back at, say, 2 o'clock, we could do some meditation with each other, and then I can teach you this particular topic. So that'll give you like an hour and 10 minutes for lunch. Sound good? Okay. All right. So I'll see you guys at 2 o'clock. Okay. Take care. Enjoy your lunch.